Hello and welcome to Vertmode. The following lecture is from my Udemy course, Complete 3D Animation Masterclass, Create Animated Shorts. If you would like to follow along with the lecture, you can go ahead and download the rig from our website at vertmode.com. I have the link down in the description down there. And if you like my teaching style and you'd be interested in learning how to create this rig along with a lot of other really cool projects, check out our course on Udemy, Complete 3D Animation Masterclass. All right, so as a bit of a bonus here, I'm going to show you how to make a walk move forward. Now, the first thing is double check and make sure there's no issues. I noticed in my contact one, this is actually hovering off the ground, and I didn't quite see that when I was doing the animation, but I am going to want to make sure that's contacted to the ground. So I'm going to make that correction now, just pushing this down until it's in contact with the ground, and just hit the S key. Then I'm going to come down here and Control C on this, come to the end frame and Control V. And then at frame 16, I'm going to do the same thing. You can see that this isn't exactly contacting the ground, so I'm just going to move that down to be in contact with the ground and hit S. So that way it will slide and slap into place there and look good. The next thing is to grab all your controls and at every frame hit S. Remember, we deleted some frames. You want to make sure you have a keyframe on every frame. So at frame 1, I'm going to hit S. And then I can click the next frame over here, hit S, next frame, 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 S, next frame, S, next frame, S. So now all the controls at every keyframe will have a key. That is a very important step to make sure this doesn't go sliding away and get off track. Now, the next thing we're going to do is track the contact points of whatever leg is contacting the ground with a locator. We're going to go to Create Locator. And in this case, it's going to be this foot that's contacting the ground. I'm going to turn on Wire Unshaded so I can see this. And I'm just going to snap to vertex right there to match that location. So that way I can have an idea of where that needs to be placed. From there, with how we've set up our rig, we only need to move the root control or center of gravity. We need to move the feet control. And that's all we need to do to move forward or backwards with how I set up my rig. If you didn't set up the following pole vectors, you'll also need to grab the knees. Once we have those selected, we can come to frame 4, make sure you're clicked into Z here, and then we can just middle mouse drag until this aligns with that point. And once it's aligned with that point, hit S, and now between 1 and 4, you'll see instead of sliding, it looks like the character's stepping downward, like so. Now we can continue that onto frame 8. So at frame 8, we're going to once again take these controls and move them forward until this aligns with that point. Once again, the foot on the ground, and we can hit S. And I'm going to move that forward just a little bit more. And you want to try and get as close as possible, but that's going to look like the character is now stepping forward. Now, I feel like we didn't grab the body in the last one, so I'm going to have to backtrack and figure that out. I'm just going to hit Control Z and try and figure out why the body didn't seem like it moved forward here. That I don't know. So I'm just going to get that moving forward. Sometimes Maya just doesn't like me, and hit S. And that should look better now. And then come in here to frame 8 and do the same thing. So I really don't know why the body didn't keyframe. I didn't deselect anything. So I really don't know what happened there. But anyways, that will get our step going forward like so. Now at this point, we're going to have a transition in weight. So notice that the back of the heel is no longer on the ground at 12, but the ball of the foot is. So we're just going to want to track this until we find the ball of the foot that's going to be on the ground. In this case, it's that one. We could either track that where it turns up or that there. I think we'll track the one that turns up, which is going to be the second one there. And I'll just move this over and V to snap to vertex here. And then once again, I'm going to select the root, shift select the foot, shift select the foot. And then coming to frame 12, we're going to hit move, hit that Z axis here, and we're going to move this forward. Now, this is probably worth noting that I am moving this in world space. You don't want to move this in object space. Okay, so if you're getting weird results, check that. Okay, so once we have that there, we can hit S, and now you'll see that that foot's planting and going up onto that area. Now, from here, we have an interesting thing happen where we transition to a new contact But the thing is, the old contact is still the valid point. So this isn't moving. So what we want to do is still track that same point. So we're just going to move this forward until we have that tracked. And that is going to give us our first step moving forward. And just hit S. And now if we go ahead and hit play, you can see, there we go. Our character is strolling along. Now from here, we have to switch to the other foot. So I'm going to take my locator and V to snap to vertex to the back of this here. So that way we have that set up. And I'm going to grab my root and my feet controls, hit S if I don't already have it. Then at frame 20 here, I'm just going to move this forward in Z, and we're going to get this to align to where the back of the foot was. And you'll see as we progress, this gets further and further and further along. So yeah, we got a bit of a distance to go now. But that is going to get us in contact with that. And you'll see that foot plants now, doesn't slide. Frame 24, we can do the same thing. Just slide it forward. And then this is going to be where we translate onto the ball there. So we already have an idea of where we want to track. I'm just going to come in here. I'll track the outside because it's easier to see. And we know we're going to want to track that point. Select your controls again. I'm going to select my root first and then my feet. Selection order doesn't matter too much, but it's easier to screw up the root control because there's a second control there. So food for thought. And then I'm just going to middle mouse drag that forward. So that way we align with that point. And there we go. A little bit of a slide there, so I might want to move that back just a bit. That looks good. And then finally, same deal here. Keep it around the same spot. And ta-da. So at this point, what we have is a character walking forward. Just like that. Very nice. Okay, so that is the secret to getting a character walk forward. Now you're probably thinking, man, that was a lot of work. And you're right, you should definitely save. I'm going to save this as a different one, which is character walk cycle underscore forward and save as. And yeah, you might be asking what happens if we cycle this now. And if I set this out to 200 like we have, and I highlight this and we go ahead and hit the cycle button, you're going to see some funny stuff happen where it begins and it begins again and again and again and again, which is interesting. It's not what we want for 200 frames. We'd like if you moved forward. Now, the secret is we need to do a cycle with offset on the specific controls that we need to have offset. So what controls are those? They're the ones we moved. They're going to be the 2 feet controls and they're going to be the root control. With those selected, you can toggle this button on here, which looks like a little dot going up and then another little dot that's a different color continuing. And that's going to be cycle with offset. So what that means is it's going to take a look at our translate values and it's going to reapply those as an additive means, meaning that the values gradually increase over time, and it will make it so our character walks forward infinitely. We have to be careful though, because we don't want to use this on any attributes or any controls that don't need to incrementally increase. Because if we do, we're going to run into trouble pretty quick because our character is going to be rotating and translating off the charts. You just want to do it on the ones you intentionally moved. So let's go ahead and activate those, and you'll see that we get something that looks a little bit different here, where we have this gradual increase in Z that just looks like a straight line, right? So you can see how that's going infinitely. And remember, Z is the move forward axes. So what we have now is a linear motion forward on these controls. And as a matter of fact, our character's somewhere over there. So if you want to check this out, we can go ahead and turn off our controllers. Nerves curves here. And if you want to have the ground turned on so you can see the character's progression in wireframe, we can hit play, and now our character is going to go for a very long walk. And this character will now walk infinitely as far as we would like for all eternity. And there you go. That's the process of making a walk forward. Now, more advanced stuff you could look into. You're probably thinking, wow, this is super cool. I want to animate a whole shot. It's a lot of work. Something to look into is the process of baking keyframes. The way I approach scenes with walks is I'll create a base walk like this and have a character walk from point A to point B. To get to point A to point B, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and set up an infinite walk like this, and then I will bake it to the keyframe it gets to the destination at. and then from there animate over the top of it. Other things you can look into as well are animation layers. I don't think we're going to get into that in this course because it's a little bit more advanced topic than what I want to cover. So is this, but hopefully this gives you some food for thought if you want to go above and beyond when it comes to animation and you want to animate this character a lot more. But there you go. We have our little walk forward with our fully textured and rigged character. Very satisfying to see. Probably some things we still need to adjust, but hey, we have it. Okay, so as a challenge, what I want you to do is try to make this happen. Try and make your character walk forward. If you can't do it, no sweat, because we are not going to do anything this advanced in our final animation for this project. But if you can achieve this, this is an excellent start to your journey as an animator, and it gives you a good feel for some of the essential skills an animator needs to have just to get a shot up and running. It's a bit different than what we've done so far. It's a lot more technical, but hopefully it gives you an idea. Okay, so go ahead and give that a shot, and then we're going to move into planning our shot and getting this final scene animated.